This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Tuesday, October 8th, 2024. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
Federal and local officials bracing for Milton.
I can't promise you that you'll be safe.
I'm Clayton Neville.
Remembrances across the U.S., Israel, and the world on the one-year anniversary of the October 7th terror attacks. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
The Georgia Supreme Court is halting a ruling striking down the state's near ban on abortions while the state appeals it. I'm Haya Panjwani.
The largest regulated water and wastewater utility company in the U.S. says it was the victim of a cyber attack. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
Two retail giants are about to slug it out for bargain deal supremacy. I'm Peter Shacknow.
A man whose loaded, unlocked shotgun was used in the accidental death of his 5-year-old grandson has been sentenced to more than 3 years in prison. I'm Norman Hall.
There has been a price change for a lottery ticket. I'm Shirley Adler.
All ahead on America in the Morning. It's one of the strongest hurricanes ever recorded. Milton tracking toward Florida with devastating winds and the potential for catastrophe in a region still reeling from the impacts of Helene. Correspondent Clayton Neville has the latest.
Stern warnings from officials in Florida. Tampa Police Chief Lee Burkaw.
We want everybody to be safe, but if you stay in an evacuation zone, I can't promise you that you'll be safe.
Milton strengthened from a Category 2 to a Cat 5 hurricane in just a few hours yesterday. Sustained winds as high as 180 miles per hour as the system barreled across the Gulf of Mexico. National Hurricane Center Deputy Director Jamie Rome says that Milton is expected to move to the northeast today.
And approach the Florida Peninsula on Wednesday with max winds of 145 miles per hour. It's then going to move somewhere across the Florida Peninsula, potentially staying a hurricane during its entire trek across the Florida Peninsula and emerge out in the western Atlantic.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis urging Floridians to take action right now.
You should have a plan and you should be executing your plan. Particularly if you're on the west coast of the Florida Peninsula. These evacuation orders have gone out in many of those places.
The governor said the state can hope and pray that the storm weakens.
But as of right now, this is a ferocious hurricane.
Vice President Kamala Harris accusing Governor DeSantis of ignoring the White House's calls surrounding recovery efforts after Hurricane Helene and preparation for Milton.
People are in desperate need of support right now, and playing political games at this moment in these crisis situations, these are the height of emergency situations. It's just utterly irresponsible, and it is selfish.
This as the back and forth continues over how much help areas ravaged by Helene are getting from the federal government. Former President Trump insisting it's not quick enough, while the White House paints those comments as misinformation ahead of the November election. The federal government is on the ground.
Also bringing in our National Incident Management Team that's based right here in Tampa to support the mayor and her team as the storm passes, to keep that line of communication open and so we can move those resources into places that will be the most needed.
FEMA Director Deanne Criswell.
Bringing in search and rescue assets from the Coast Guard and the Air Force. We're bringing in our own urban search and rescue teams, Department of Interior. They'll all be available to support people as this storm continues to pass.
Milton churning toward Florida as that state and others in the southeast still grapple with catastrophic flooding from Helene. A double dose of potential devastation will call for another round of federal help. President Biden already signing a disaster declaration ahead of Milton's landfall in the States. I'm Clayton Neville.
Leaders in the U.S., Israel, and around the world came together to remember the horrors of Hamas' brutal attack on Israel on the one-year anniversary of October 7th. John Stolnis has more from Washington.
Speaking at a remembrance event in Florida, former President Trump paying tribute alongside Jewish community leaders and Republican members of Congress to the roughly 1,200 Israelis killed during Hamas's brazen attack.
It was an attack on humanity itself. It was a hideous, incredible cruelty. It was chilling savagery. It was demonic delight and the destruction of innocent life on October 7th. It seemed as if the gates of hell had sprung open and unleash their horrors onto the world, and that's exactly what happened.
His running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, in a commemoration ceremony on the National Mall, placing blame on the Biden administration for failing to secure a peace deal that would bring what remains of the original 250 hostages taken home.
It is disgraceful that we have an American president and vice president who haven't done a thing. Vice President Harris, our message is bring them home. Use your authority to help bring them home. We can do it. We just need real leadership.
Vice President Harris remembering the victims of that tragic day by declaring Israel's security will always be backed by the United States.
We must work to ensure nothing like the horrors of October 7 can ever happen again. And on this solemn day, I will restate my pledge to always ensure that Israel has what it needs to defend itself.
And Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff declared October 7th a tough day for Jews like him, noting their planting of a pomegranate tree, saying in Judaism it's a symbol of hope.
Now, as we prepare to leave a legacy of our time here, we plant this pomegranate tree to honor this solemn day and for the families who will come after us to enjoy.
Meanwhile, Israelis engaged in solemn remembrances. During a televised governmental memorial service, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said in a pre-recorded video that Israel will continue to fight their enemies. Quote, "As long as the enemy threatens our existence and the peace of our country, we will continue to fight. As long as our hostages are still in Gaza, we will continue to fight." John Stolnis, Washington.
Georgia faces legal challenges on abortion, plus cyber attack at a water company. Those stories when America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning, tracking Milton. Is AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy, the latest details and the nation's forecast.
Hurricane Milton quickly ramped up in intensity yesterday morning, reaching a Category 5 hurricane, the top end of the hurricane wind scale. And it has kept that intensity right into this morning. The system is expected to hold that status through the end of the day before a slight decrease Wednesday. It is still anticipated that Milton will be making landfall Wednesday late in the evening as a major hurricane. The expected landfall is going to be around central Florida, and this will include a devastating storm surge of up to 20 feet, possibly more. And then wind gusts of 165 miles per hour at the point of landfall, which appears to be around the Tampa Bay area, and a wide swath of 8 to 16 inches of rain through the central part of the state, and an AccuWeather local storm max of 30 inches. Even though Milton is expected to be centered along central Florida, everyone in the state should be prepared for some form of impact. Today, there will be some precursor showers and thunderstorms throughout central and southern Florida prior to the increasing impacts from Milton starting late tonight. A few of these storms could still produce drenching rainfall. The rest of the nation remains remarkably quiet, with just a few showers from lake effect across western New York into northern Pennsylvania, as well as some showers along the Washington and Oregon coast from a storm centered in Canada and the associated cold front dipping into the northwest U.S. The record-breaking heat will continue across the southwest into the California valleys, where highs will once again reach into the upper 90s in California and increase to nearly 110 in Arizona. That's the weather across America. Binghamton, New York will have sunshine mixing with clouds and an afternoon shower with a cool high of 57. It is going to be a warm day in Lubbock, Texas with sunshine and a high of 91. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Remember, you can follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. A ruling by Georgia's top court will have an impact on the state's abortion law, Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports.
The Georgia Supreme Court is halting a ruling striking down the state's near ban on abortions while the state appeals it. The law that a judge found unconstitutional criminalizes abortions beyond about 6 weeks of pregnancy, which is before many women realize they're pregnant. Fulton County Judge Robert McBurney ruled that Georgians' constitutional right to privacy includes the right to make personal health care decisions. McBurney's decision restored a state law allowing abortions until viability, roughly 22 to 24 weeks into pregnancy. The High Court suspended that ruling while it considers the state attorney general's appeal. I'm Haya Panjwani.
American Water Works, a company that supplies water to 14 states from Hawaii to New Jersey and 18 military bases, and is the largest water utility in the nation, has become the victim of a cyber attack. Correspondent Lisa Dwyer has the latest.
The largest regulated water and wastewater utility company in the U.S. says it was the victim of a cyber attack, prompting the firm to pause billing to customers. New Jersey-based American Water provides services for more than 14 million people in 14 states and on 18 military installations. American Water says that it became aware of the unauthorized activity last Thursday and immediately took protective steps, including shutting down certain systems. The company does not believe its facilities or operations were impacted by the attack. Customers will not face late charges while its systems are unavailable. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
American Water released a statement saying that billing will remain on hold until further notice, and staffers were working round the clock to investigate the nature and scope of the attack. It is not clear where the cyber attack originated. Amazon versus Walmart. Consumers the winner. That and more when America in the Morning returns after these messages. Welcome back here with America in the Morning. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments is a fiduciary, always putting clients' interests first. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. In for Jessica Ettinger, CNBC's Peter Shacknow.
Remember when Amazon's Prime Day was a once-a-year, one-day event? It started that way in 2015, then it expanded to 2 days in 2019. 2 years ago, it added an October Prime Day, with the 2024 version beginning today and running through tomorrow. Not to be outdone, Walmart is beginning its holiday deals promotion today, set to last through Sunday. This is relevant not only to bargain-seeking consumers, but also to investors. This week, Amazon stock was downgraded to equal weight, the equivalent of neutral, by Wells Fargo analyst Ken Gorelski, who says increasing competition from Walmart on multiple fronts is a big factor.
Walmart is that scaled competitor and just recently launched a service allowing sellers and merchants on Amazon to be shipped via Walmart. And what we see here is that not that Walmart is going to take significant share of either merchants or consumer dollars away from Amazon, but it's going to limit Amazon's ability to raise fees. And that's what we bake into our numbers going forward.
In the meantime, consumers may be the winner in this scenario as they seek out retail bargains. Another stock in the spotlight is drug maker Pfizer, which rose 2% yesterday on word that activist investor Starboard Value had taken a $1 billion stake in the company and will push for changes to improve financial performance. Paul Argenti, a professor of management at Dartmouth's Tuck School of Business, says there is room for improvement.
Pfizer really hasn't come around since, making so much money on COVID. And they're banking on the fact that the drug industry is the most profitable industry in the world and has been for the entire 43 years I've been at the Tuck School. And if someone were to try to put some time into it, they could figure out a way to make the company more profitable than it is. And that's not a bad bet.
Pfizer shares are down more than 30% over the past 2 years amid a bull market. By comparison, competitor Merck is up 24% and Eli Lilly is up 175% over that same period.
Peter, the stock market took a big hit yesterday. What were some of the reasons behind it?
Well, it was indeed the worst day in over a month for both the Dow and S&P 500, with the market getting hit on two fronts. One, the price of oil accelerated its spike higher on worries about possible violence escalating in the Middle East. Separately, Treasury yields spiked, with the 2-year and 10-year Treasury notes both rising over 4%. Higher yields in the fixed income market tend to make stocks less attractive. Now, of course, the Fed has been cutting interest rates, and some see that rise in yields as temporary, pointing to a possible overreaction to last Friday's stronger than expected September jobs report.
All right. There's CNBC's Peter Shacknow. When we return on America in the Morning, Mega Millions cost more after these messages. This is America in the Morning. A Michigan gun owner has been sent to prison for the accidental death of his grandson. Correspondent Norman Hall reports.
A man whose loaded, unlocked shotgun was used in the accidental death of his 5-year-old grandson has been sentenced to more than 3 years in prison for violating Michigan's new gun storage law. Judge Robert Springstead called the shooting a tragedy that was 100% avoidable. The boy's 6-year-old cousin got access to the weapon in the western Michigan home. Carl Robart will be eligible for parole after 38 months. A similar case against his wife remains pending. Michigan firearms must be locked up when children are present. The consequences for a violation depend on the details and whether someone is wounded or killed. I'm Norman Hall.
You'll need more than just $1 and a dream. Correspondent Shelley Adler reports the price of a Mega Millions lottery ticket is going up.
The cost of buying a Mega Millions jackpot dream will soon more than double, but lottery officials say they're confident players won't mind paying more after changes that will lead to larger prizes and more frequent winners. Lottery officials say it will cost $5 to play Mega Millions beginning in April. That's up from the current $2 per ticket. The price increase will be one of many changes to Mega Millions that officials say will result in better odds to win the jackpot, more giant prizes, and even larger payouts. I'm Shelley Adler.
America in the Morning for Tuesday, October 8th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
Hurricane Milton got very strong, very fast in Sagar-Magaoni, Washington.
Addressing misinformation surrounding storm response. I'm Clayton Neville.
Hurricane Helene, increasing insurance rates across the nation. And a serial killer captured near Niagara Falls.
The entire Chicago Board of Education has resigned. I'm Sue Aller.
There's another example of Donald Trump alleging immigrants are changing the nation's hereditary makeup. Sagar-Magaoni, Washington.
Iconic actor Al Pacino offered some insight into life and death in a recent interview. I'm Kevin Carr.
Back after these messages. This is America in the Morning. AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy is at the National Weather Map.
We are going to continue to talk about Hurricane Milton this morning. It ramped up to a Category 5 hurricane yesterday. That's the top end of the hurricane wind scale, and it has kept that intensity right into this morning and is expected to hold that status through the end of the day before a slight decrease on Wednesday. It is still anticipated that Milton will be making landfall Wednesday late in the evening as a major hurricane. The expected landfall is going to be around central Florida, and this will be a devastating storm surge of 20 feet, possibly more, with gusts up to 165 miles per hour at the point of landfall, which appears to be around the Tampa Bay area. And there will be a wide swath of 8 to 16 inches of rain through central part of the state, and an AccuWeather local storm max of 30 inches. Milton is expected to be centered along central Florida, but everyone in the state should prepare for some form of impact. Today, there will be some precursor showers and thunderstorms through the central and southern parts of the state prior to the increasing impacts from Milton starting late tonight. A few of these storms, again, could still produce drenching rainfall. The rest of the nation remains quiet. There will be a few showers from lake effect across western New York into northern Pennsylvania, and a storm in Canada will place a cold front in the northwest U.S. with some showers into Washington and Oregon along the coasts. The record-breaking heat will continue in the southwest into the California valleys, where highs will once again reach into the upper 90s in California and increase to nearly 110 in Arizona. It will also be quite warm through the Plains states for early October. There will be plenty of sunshine through the length of the portion of this country, with highs in the 80s from Montana into the Dakotas and warming to the upper 90s across South Texas. Some areas will be nearly 10 degrees above the historical average. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. Milton, in just 4 hours, went from a Category 2 to a catastrophic Category 5 hurricane. It's expected to head straight to the Tampa area as the strongest to ever hit the city. Washington correspondent Sagar Magani reports there are those in central and southern Florida preparing to ride out the storm, others evacuating in what will be the second hurricane to hit Florida in the past 2 weeks.
Just wanting to make sure that we're protected from the storm surge. The last one came up real close to the front door, so I think we needed some bags to make sure we're protected this time.
We got hit with the last storm. We got flooded, so it's all about prepping this time. So we're getting the sandbags ready to put around the house to prevent what happened last week.
It's really frustrating that the last hurricane came, the storm, and they've screwed around and haven't picked the debris up, and now they're scrambling to get it picked up. And if this one does hit, it's going to be flying missiles. Stuff's going to be floating, flying in the air.
Hurricane Milton got very strong, very fast, and is now a Category 5 heading for Florida's Gulf Coast.
We are predicting 10 to 15 feet of storm surge. Put that in perspective, I'm 6 feet tall. That's more than 2 of me high. And if this is realized, that is more surge than was experienced during Helene. So to sort of put that in perspective.
The National Hurricane Center's Eric Blake says Milton's aiming for the same stretch of coast Hurricane Helene battered less than 2 weeks ago.
If it comes ashore as strong as we think it will, it could be one of the worst hurricanes we've seen in quite some time.
Milton's center could strike in the Tampa Bay region, which hasn't taken a head-on major hurricane hit in more than a century. It's the spot MIT meteorology professor Kerry Emanuel's long worried about.
Huge population. It's very exposed. Very inexperienced.
For Tanya Marunchuk, whose house was devastated by Helene.
We are very scared from the last storm. I'm really young, so I keep talking to my older neighbors, and they keep saying that they have never seen anything like this in 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. This is the oddest weather predicament that there has ever been.
Tampa Mayor Jane Castor's urging residents to get ready for another.
This is the real deal here.
And warning them not to ignore evacuation orders.
If you want to take on Mother Nature, she wins 100% of the time.
Sagar Magani, Washington.
FEMA officials are addressing what they call misinformation surrounding the federal government's response to Hurricane Helene, which killed hundreds of people and led to catastrophic flooding in parts of the Southeast. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
Governor Ron DeSantis responding to reports that he refused to answer Vice President Kamala Harris's phone call about Hurricane Helene relief and preparation for Hurricane Milton, which is tracking toward Florida.
I didn't know that she had called, so I'm not sure who they called. They didn't call me, and their characterization of it was something that they did. It wasn't anything that anybody in my office did in terms of saying that it was political.
The vice president accusing DeSantis of exactly that. Political gains.
Playing political games at this moment in these crisis situations. These are the height of emergency situations. It's just utterly irresponsible, and it is selfish.
White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre says it's completely on the governor how he chooses to respond to federal help, which Florida is accepting.
If you have the president and you have the vice president reaching out to offer up assistance provided to your constituents, the people who live in your state, to make sure we are doing everything that we need to do from a federal response, and we're reaching out, offering our support. That's for the governor. The governor is up to him if he wants to respond to us or not.
This week, FEMA pointing to misinformation surrounding its response to Helene. There have been a growing number of scams and posts that suggest FEMA is not responding with urgency, and former President Trump reportedly claimed that disaster funds were being used on illegal immigrants rather than Americans impacted by disaster. FEMA Director Deanne Criswell on MSNBC.
It's frankly disappointing that we're having to deal with this narrative, and the fact that there's a few leaders that are having a hard time telling the difference between fact and fiction is creating an impedance to our ability to actually get people the help they need.
FEMA insisting in a statement that no money is being diverted from disaster response. I'm Clayton Neville.
As Floridians prepare for the worst, those trying to leave are complaining of price gouging. There are reports of people looking for an airline and paying over $1,000 for a flight out of Tampa before that airport closes this morning. but paying far less in Orlando and in Miami. In hurricane-ravaged North Carolina, correspondent Norman Hall reports home insurers are now calling for a 42% average premium hike in the Tar Heel state.
With many western North Carolina residents still lacking power and running water from Hurricane Helene, a hearing began Monday on the insurance industry's request to raise homeowner premiums statewide by more than 42% on average. The industry is seeking proposed increases varying widely from just over 4% in parts of the mountains to 99% in some beach areas. Across 11 western counties that were hit hard by Helene, including the Asheville area, the requested increase is 20.5%. The industry says higher premiums are needed to assure profits and the ability to pay claims. But other experts are expected to tell regulators to cut premiums. I'm Norman Hall.
Among the stories we're covering next, entire school board resigns, and targeting an asteroid to save the planet, when America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. I'm John Trout. Police nab their prime suspect, a potential serial killer. Authorities in Ontario, Canada, arrested 30-year-old Sabrina Kuldar after two men were killed in Niagara Falls and Hamilton, and a woman was the victim in Toronto, all in the open span of 3 days. Canada's CBC is reporting that investigators believe that both men may have been randomly targeted, as one of the men was stabbed in a Niagara Falls park. The man in Hamilton attacked in a parking lot, while the woman in Toronto was believed to have known the suspect. Kuldar is being held on 3 murder charges. Back here at home, the entire school board of one of our nation's largest cities abruptly resigned, and the mayor has handpicked 6 people to replace them and is facing heat for his decision. Sue Aller has details.
On the defense and on the attack, Chicago's Mayor Brandon Johnson defends his decision at a press conference on Monday to appoint a whole new school board after all the members of the old school board resigned due to ongoing disputes about district control and funding issues. Johnson described this as a transition period to transform the nation's third largest public school system. Over 40 members of the city council, including some of the mayor's allies, signed a letter denouncing the board's resignation.
So you have a black man who's a parent, a teacher, and the mayor of Chicago with the authority that the state gave me. And now they have concerns that I'm expressing that authority?
New member Reverend Mitchell L. Ikena Johnson fully supports the mayor.
I stand steadfast in our commitment to Mayor Johnson's vision to fully fund neighborhood schools.
The mayor wants to fire the school's CEO, Pedro Martinez, and take out a high-interest loan to cover the city's pension payments and this year's teacher's contract. The new board will serve until the city's first school board elections next month. I'm Sue Aller.
Donald Trump is being challenged by the Harris campaign regarding comments he made during an interview involving migrants and violent crime. Washington correspondent Sagar Magani reports.
There's another example of Donald Trump alleging immigrants are changing the nation's hereditary makeup. On conservative radio host Hugh Hewitt's show, the ex-president suggested migrants in the U.S. who've committed murder did so because it's in their genes, adding there are a lot of bad genes in our country right now. His campaign says Trump was clearly referring to murderers, not migrants. But at the White House,
this comes from the same vile statements that we've heard about migrants being poison the blood.
Karine Jean-Pierre referring to Trump last year talking about illegal immigrants in the type of language Hitler once used.
They're poisoning the blood of our country. That's what they've done.
That type of language is hateful, it's disgusting, it's inappropriate, and has no place in our country.
Sagar Magani, Washington.
A rocket launches into space. Its destination, a large asteroid. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports the mission is to conduct a Save the Earth test.
3, 2, 1, ignition.
Engines full power. And liftoff. Go Hera, go Falcon, go SpaceX.
The European Space Agency's Hera spacecraft rocketed away on a 2-year journey to the small, harmless asteroid rammed by NASA 2 years ago. It's a dress rehearsal for the day a killer space rock threatens Earth. The spacecraft was launched by SpaceX from Cape Canaveral. It's the second part of a planetary defense test that could one day help save the planet. Researchers want to know whether DART, short for Double Asteroid Redirection Test, left a crater or perhaps reshaped the 500-foot asteroid more dramatically. I'm Haya Panjwani.
Google parent company Alphabet has been ordered to allow competition on their Android payments platform and the Google Play Store, paving the way for Epic Games. Here's Chuck Palm with that in today's Tech News.
A judge ordered on Monday that Google's Alphabet company must overhaul its mobile app business and give Android users more options to download apps and pay for transactions within them. The injunction, offered up by District Judge James Donato, is in response to a jury verdict from last year where Fortnite maker Epic Games sued Google for the rights to be able to make separate charges within their game. Donato ordered that for 3 years, Google cannot prohibit the use of in-app payment methods and must allow users to download competing third-party Android app platforms or stores. Google said they will ask a U.S. court to pause Donato's order pending appeal, and that it will likely cause more harm to the consumers, developers, and device makers. Epic Games chief Tim Sweeney posted on X that this was big news and Epic Games Store and other app stores will come to Google Play in 2025. For more tech news, follow me on X at Chuck Palm.
Tuesday Sports is in. Here's our Robert Workman.
Baseball Monday, American League Division Series, Game 2. The Royals evened up things with the Yankees, winning 4-2. After New York scratched out a run in the bottom of the third, Salvador Perez led off the fourth with a homer to left.
Every time we do something to help my team to win, feel amazing, you just get excited a little bit too much.
KC then tacked on 3 more runs in the inning thanks to 4 singles, a wild pitch, and a stolen base to grab the lead. Game 3 in Kansas City tomorrow night. The Tigers shut out the Guardians 3-0 to level their series at 1-1. Tarek Skubal fired 7 innings of 3-hit ball, while a collection of Cleveland pitchers held Detroit to just 5 hits until the 9th, when the Tigers mounted a 2-out rally against super closer Emmanuel Clase. Jake Rogers and Trey Sweeney stroked singles, then Kerry Carpenter took one out to right. The first runs Clase had given up since August. Tigers manager A.J. Hinch.
I mean, what a game. It's an understatement, but how about the 3 2-out hits?
The series moves to Detroit tomorrow. National League Division Series resumed today. Game 3 between the Phillies and the Mets in New York. Then it's the Padres and the Dodgers in San Diego. Both of those series are tied 1-1 as well. The first time all 4 division series have split the first 2 games. Monday Night Football, Week 5 wrapped up with the Chiefs chasing away the Saints 26-13 to improve to 5-0, one of 2 remaining unbeaten teams in the league, along with Minnesota. Patrick Mahomes threw for 331 yards, and Kansas City has now won 11 games in a row dating back to last season, including their Super Bowl run. Week 6 opens Thursday night in Seattle with the 49ers at the Seahawks. After the Devils swept a pair of Global Series games from the Sabres in Prague, NHL version 108 begins in earnest, and North America, with a Tuesday tripleheader. The Blues and the Kraken open things up with a matinee in Seattle. Then it's the Bruins at the Stanley Cup champion Panthers. The final game tonight has the Blackhawks at the new Utah club, the former Arizona Coyotes, relocated to Salt Lake City. That's Tuesday Sports.
Thank you, Robert. Among the stories we're covering next, COVID. You never know where or who it's going to affect next. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. The mother of Whitney Houston has passed away. Entertainment correspondent Margie Zara Letter reports on the death of gospel musician Cissy Houston.
Cissy Houston's music career started as a child with her family's gospel group, the Drinkard Four. Houston said in a 1998 AP interview, singing was how her family taught her to find God.
We had been taught that is who you sing for. That is, the way to get to know God and to know of his blessings and, things like that. I didn't quite get to know him until I found him for myself. And that was at age 14.
Houston later was part of the Sweet Inspirations, who sang on songs like Van Morrison's Brown Eyed Girl and as backup singers for Elvis Presley's 1969 shows in Las Vegas. Houston was a big part in the life of her daughter, Whitney Houston. She had a role in the film The Preacher's Wife, and she's the one hugging Whitney at the end of the Greatest Love of All video. I'm Archie Zaraletta.
We likely all know someone who lost their life to the coronavirus, and we know many who survived. Kevin Carr reports that actor Al Pacino came close to death in 2020 when he had a bout with COVID.
Al Pacino recently opened up about almost dying from COVID in 2020. The Oscar winner was promoting his new book, Sonny Boy, on the New York Times The Interview podcast with David Marchese, and he recalled his near-death experience.
You know, actors, it sounds good to me to say I died once. It felt like death.
The 84-year-old actor said he was running a fever and became dehydrated. Then his heart stopped.
I was sitting there in my house, and I was gone like that.
He was revived by paramedics and attended to, but he could not help but face the inevitable.
It was no more. I don't like that there's no more. It's gone. You're gone. Now, I started thinking about that, and I never thought about it in my life.
Pacino, who had his fourth child just last year at the age of 83, was then asked what films he would tell his youngest son to watch to remember him by. The actor, who has been in some of the most iconic movies in history, including The Godfather saga and Scarface, had an unusual answer.
I think he should start off with Adam Sandler's.
Jack and Jill.
What was that? Jack and Jill. I think that's funny.
While Adam Sandler's cross-dressing comedy, Jack and Jill, was panned by critics, it offered Pacino a lifeline at the time.
It came at a time in my life when I needed it, because it was pretty much after I found out I had no more money, because my accountant was in prison.
Al Pacino's memoir, Sonny Boy, comes out on October 15th. I'm Kevin Carr.
That's our show for today. America in the Morning for Tuesday, October 8th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.